For the past 20 years, Jan Willaert has managed operations across Europe, the Americas, and Africa for the organization CORE. He's now in charge of humanitarian relief in Ukraine. And Jan, thanks for being with us. Explain, if you would, what CORE does and how your organization is helping Ukrainians.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having us on the show and allowing us to talk about this important work we do in Ukraine. We're an emergency relief organization that came out of the 2010 earthquake in Haiti. And right now on the ground in Ukraine, Poland, and Romania, CORE is providing life-saving items near the front line, such as food, water, clothing, shelter, cash, and so forth. And then the last few months, we've also made a tremendous effort preparing the Ukrainian people for winter by helping upgrading collective centers, providing wood, coal, and generators, and so forth.
Jan, 2 weeks ago, we learned that an American aid worker in Ukraine may have been the target of a Russian attack. Are you concerned about your volunteers and workers in Ukraine?
Well, we don't have volunteers in Ukraine, and 100% of our staff in Ukraine is Ukrainian. As a matter of fact, one of them, our country lead, is a refugee herself, and she, on the first day of the war last year, fled with her kids and whatever she could bring with her to Europe. And that's how we work. We work with local peoples. We are localizing our operations, and I am not concerned about Americans or our American staff being targeted.
Jan, a year ago, we watched as families were broken apart, the men having to stay behind and serve and fight the war, many of the women leaving the country with their children. You're talking about people staying in the country. What has this year been like? What is daily life like now for Ukrainians since the war began?
Well, it's been very difficult. I'll give you the example of one of our male workers in Dnipro. Dnipro is a city very close to the front line and near Zaporizhzhia, where that very famous nuclear plant is. And very often when I talk to him on the phone or on Zoom, the sirens go off like you saw in the previous piece with President Biden in Kiev. He has to go into the bomb shelters. They don't have power for hours on end. It's very unpredictable. They don't have water. Life is incredibly difficult as it is, let alone trying to make a living, take care of your family, provide food, shelter for everyone. So it's been very, very difficult. And every Ukrainian has their story. And even for us within CORE, all of our Ukrainian staff have their stories. Another one of our employees, who is a guy, as you know, in Ukraine, if you're between 18 and 60, you cannot leave the country. If you're a man, dropped his kids and his wife off at the beginning of the war on the border, not knowing if he would see them again. The same for the women that leave the country, not knowing if they would see their families again or how long they would stay overseas. So it's been a very difficult year for a lot of people.
How long can Ukraine last? We hear people say that they would like a quick end to this, but we also hear experts saying there will be no quick end to this. For the Ukrainians on the ground that you work with, what is their tolerance level? In other words, when do they reach the point where too much is enough?
I'm not an expert, but from my interactions with Ukrainians, and I was just in Kiev last week, they have tremendous pride and confidence in their country. And there's an example of a medical volunteer I was talking to who we asked, you know, how long can you keep this up? You go to school 12 hours a day and then you volunteer at night 7 days a week since the beginning of the war. And he simply said, I'll do this until I can go to the beach in Crimea. So that's pretty much a reflection of the attitude of the Ukrainians, a very strong people.
We're seeing the images right now coming out of Ukraine. Devastation, utter devastation. Do Ukrainians think they can rebuild if and when this war ends? And do they have an idea as to how long that might take?
I think it'll take a very long time, but Ukrainians are very sure that they will rebuild, and they're already rebuilding. CORE is already helping Ukrainians with local organizations rebuilding. We are helping rebuilding housing, schools. We're looking at projects around healthcare, and this is, of course, in the West and the areas of the country that are less attacked. But the country is being rebuilt all the time. When you see the images of the electrical power grid being attacked by the Russians, those are being fixed as they are being attacked almost immediately. So the country is receiving a lot of aid from outside, and a lot of groups like CORE put their effort into helping Ukrainians not just survive with basic aid like food and shelter, but also in trying to rebuild already today the country. But it will take a tremendous effort from everyone, and it'll take some time to do this.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I know that organizations like yours are so kind with your time for organizations like ours is it's a way of getting out the word for what is needed. What type of assistance do Ukrainians need?
Well, right now, the most important need for the Ukrainians is near the front lines. Basic help, food, water, shelter, clothing, medicines, hygiene. That's the help that they need. People are trying to survive under constant shelling. And then, of course, there's the need for the people in the rest of Ukraine, which is people living in collective shelters, women with young children needing health care. There's needs around protection, protection against sexual abuse and assault. There's also refugees outside of Ukraine, Poland, Romania, Moldova, all those people that need to be integrated into these new communities that they're now part of. They need to find jobs, they need to be trained, they need to find daycare for their children, they need language lessons. The list of needs is endless.
Sadly, that may be the understatement. Jan Willaert with CORE. Jan, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.